Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome along to another episode of Telecast PH, the Telework PH Business Process Outsourcing Podcast, a podcast dedicated to breaking through the cultural barriers and changing the way we look at outsourcing to the Philippines. I'm BizDev Jeff, your host. I'm the Business Development Manager for Telework PH. Thanks so much for joining. And as always, a special thank you to all who have been listening and following my content on LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you haven't yet, and you want to find me on those platforms, all you got to do is search BizDev Jeff. Connect with me and I'll show you how outsourcing some of the non-core aspects of your business, like customer support or back office operations or even data annotation, can open up a whole new world. And in return, you'll be helping make an impact on poverty in the Philippines. Right, so on to today's topic and our very, very special guest, Mr. Adam Ward, who is the content marketing specialist at Leadmetrics in the UK. He's also a poet and author under the name of Cameron Grace. If you want to find him on Kindle, I highly recommend his work. He's a musician and he has his master's in English. Now, I say very, very special guest because Adam's actually one of my best friends and fellow author. And we had a great conversation about blogs and all the elements of blog writing that you'll need to know for your company webpage. It was a great, fun, informative conversation. Let's listen in. I have with me today one of my best friends and fellow author, Adam Ward. He's the Leadmetrics content marketing specialist, and we're going to delve into blogs and the art of blog writing for company web pages. What's up, Adam?
Hey, how's it going?
Man, it's going good for me. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. The sun's finally shining here in the UK, and we're not allowed out to enjoy it. Other than that, it's going quite well.
Well, that's good to hear. So anyway, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you say, I'm the content marketing specialist for Leadmetrics, which is based in Northampton of the UK. I'm a father of two and stepdad to two. I'm a bit of a musician. Like you pointed out, I'm also an author. I've gone under the name of Cameron Grace. I have a degree in English and a master's in contemporary literature. And other than that, the rest is just smart arsery, really.
You know, I'll add in there for our listeners, Adam is a poet, a pretty good musician. You can catch him on Facebook Live. How often are you doing that Facebook Live?
To be fair, I was doing it every fortnight. This week instead, I'm doing 24-hour gaming session for the Macmillan nurses. So it's not going to be this weekend, although I've got to record half an hour set for some festival for charity that later on, which will be airing on Saturday. You can check that out on the Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/Cameron Grace Writes.
I'll include that link along with the other links in the comments when I put up the description for the podcast. So tell us about your main tasks there at Leadmetrics.
Well, basically what I do at Leadmetrics is I manage the social media for our clients. I manage our social media. I run the blogs. I do a lot of content writing for companies. I write for our own company or our companies because there's also Mailing Manager and IHM to consider. So I produce a lot of content. Recently, we've just released some guides for how to handle LinkedIn if you're a logistics company, how to handle LinkedIn if you're an accountant. We've also done some email marketing guides and things like that. So generally what I do, as well as manage a lot of the client work, is I create content for Leadmetrics to distribute.
You know, the social media marketing is huge. You know, what we were talking about just now is, before we got into the podcast was about the differences nowadays in the selling and where are people hanging out. They're hanging out on social media. And it's great because they want to, discover and be able to actually take themselves down the sales funnel rather than have somebody else guide them. They want to be able to discover, they want to look and be able to click some links and read some things and really delve into it before they talk to somebody. So, that kind of leads us to, what we want to talk about today.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, social media is where they're hanging out. The millennial doesn't want to be sold to. The millennial wants to be attracted to a brand. Same with the Gen Z. Now they're coming into the work the Gen Zs are becoming adults now, and you sell to them, they're going to walk away. You need to bring them into the conversation. That's how they do it. It's like collaboration and networking. And the way it's good for us and this conversation is that we're creating lead magnets. We're creating information. We're all consumers, of content, and that's what we're doing. And that's what, with the social media, with the blogging and everything else, that we're just providing content to be consumed. And that's a better way of getting the prospects than it is, with direct selling techniques.
So yeah, let's go ahead and rap about blogs, because that's let's zero in on that. That's what we're talking about. Now both of us are writers, and we both write blogs, for our own companies and others. Yep. So in your opinion, I want to hear it from you. How does blog writing differ from article writing?
I always find that a tricky one to answer. With article writing, that it's more or less paper format, isn't it? And there tends to be a lot more restrictions, I find. Articles aren't, if you're talking sort of like paper articles or articles from magazines, they tend to not be as easy to consume as a blog article is. With the blog, the skill with a blog article is to get the same level of intelligent content, make it ultimately readable, but you've got that extra kind of ingredient to worry about of SEO. A blog will stand on its own, where all these articles kind of like, blend, are amongst other articles with the centerfold and everything around it. With a blog kind of, even though it might be part of a blog, the post kind of needs to be found on its own and independently.
Right. Like articles have almost a specific formula that you have to follow. And a lot of them, they want you to veer away from personal opinions. As soon as you have a personal opinion or you inject certain things, it becomes blog status in a way. Yeah.
You're dead right. If you're writing for, say, like the UK Warehousing Association, they don't have the luxury of saying, well, whatever he wrote there, we can't not own that opinion. So they'll edit that, and I think that's another big difference, isn't it? It's the stages of editing that it goes through before publication. With a blog, we write the blog, we edit it down, we edit it for our SEO, but we edit it, it's the same person generally that's editing it that has created or written the blog post in the first instance. With an article, you've got so many more, stages to go through before it even hits publication, which means I think in many ways that's how it gets sanitized, and it can be easily diluted by other people getting involved. Whereas we create the blogs, yourself and I, we create the blogs for the company, we edit them, we get them looking the best, and we bang them, we distribute them out. And it's direct from what we've said to our audience.
So how important do you think, blogging is for a company, for like a company webpage, in today's social selling platforms?
It's one of the most important parts of your marketing strategy without it actually directly generating sales, if you get what I mean. It's not the best selling tool, but for instance, I create a blog a week is what we do with our company. If I don't make it, I'll edit someone else's, and we'll put out a blog a week. Now, somebody right now may not be in market for a digital agency. Currently, right now, with the quarantine going on, you can be forgiven as a company for sort of like trying to save a few of the pennies, trying to look towards the future, trying to survive a little bit. But that doesn't mean in 6 months' time they're not going to be in the position to go, right, do you know what? We want someone to handle our LinkedIn, or we want somebody to do this. Who am I going to go? Am I going to go with the company that's been providing me with information, that's kept in contact, has not asked for anything back, and has just, written rankable, readable blogs? Or are you going to go with a company that's just sent me email marketing campaigns that have just been selling the entire time? Who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust the person that's providing content, or are you going to trust the company that's trying to scrape for sales? So I think as part of any marketing strategy, blogging is really, really important. Not only does it demonstrates your knowledge around the subject. For instance, with logistics, You could be writing about how coronavirus has impacted the supply chain, for instance. You know, you're putting out intellectual content, you're putting out really informative content all the way through. And people are eating that up. People are, you know, really enjoying what you're writing. They're finding it all very useful. They can apply it themselves. But at no point have you gone, so now you've read this, I want you to buy this lorry from me. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a major point there with blog writing is you know, the blogs don't always have to be a sales tool. You know,
it's the difference between a content writer and a copywriter, isn't it? A copywriter will write copy for sales sheets to go out there describing a product. A content writer isn't necessarily focused on the sale. They're focused on creating the content, and the content is the end game for them.
Right. I mean, and it's a lot like just, you know, posting, you know, on LinkedIn. You know, you're not, you know, if you're on LinkedIn, you're not always just feeding content about trying to make a sale. But hey, I found this article useful. Some other people might find it useful. Hey, you know what? I brought up this fact, or I found this fact, and I want to share it with everybody. You know, like this week is Mental Health Week, so there's been a lot of sharing of personal experiences, and you know, other resources that are available from, you know, people that they're not even really, you know, using that to make a sale, but they're just getting that content out there. And blogs can be used in the same way. They don't always have to be directly you know, geared toward your product or service. Even it could be just something that you know, some information to get out about what's going on, like you said, you know, currently the pandemic, but it could be anything. It could be about keeping organized, or you know, whatever topic that they may find useful.
Yeah, it's something that, I mean, literally just, I've been writing about this in the next guide that I'm creating, which is about content writing for logistics companies again, about, you know, finding trending topics or topics that directly affect your industry and those that indirectly affect it. So, you know, if again, taking the logistics, if we're talking about looking for content that shows how automation is making the supply chains more transparent, or that, you know, that would be direct subject matter, or there is indirect subject matter. For instance, coronavirus. Tell me an industry that it hasn't affected. You can take these outside influences and directly apply them, and that's kind of what we do, isn't it?
Okay, so let's say we have a company, a brand new company, and they're starting a brand new blog. They just put up their website. They want to get some articles up there. Obviously, they're going to their first articles, or their first blog posts are going to be about their products or services.
Why would you say that?
Well, I would just think that if, you know, it's a brand new company and they want to raise awareness about what they do, they want to give a little bit of an explanation of what they do and what they can offer.
You know, surely their website would do that, and any landing pages they have. They've still got social media. The blog doesn't necessarily have to start from sales. In fact, I almost would advise against that from a startup perspective. Obviously, you're going to be creating that content with your website. That is going to be advertising you. You're going to have a social media strategy dealing with that anyway. The blog, you know, these blog pieces could still not be salesy. They could still be useful information to demonstrate the knowledge. You've got everything else set up around you to distribute what your company does and can do. I would almost advise against a brand new startup, you know, firing out their first article about, look at what we've got to offer.
Interesting.
That's what the rest of the strategy is for.
That's an interesting challenge, and point well taken. Point well taken. One that I hadn't thought about. Yeah, I mean, if you have your social media marketing in place, your website is there. So yeah, I can see what you're saying. I can see where that would be beneficial to attract readers by not talking about your products or services. That's what you're suggesting, huh?
Yeah, I mean, when we started Leadmetrics, because Leadmetrics is like a younger company than Mailer Manager. Before we launched it, we wrote the website, but on it, before we even launched that website, I'd written 10 blog articles, and none of them were salesy. They were all from the beginning. They were talking about the best ways of doing CRO. They were a little bit generic. At the time, I was kind of learning the craft a little bit more than I am now. But we decided straight away, we want useful articles. We want to start as we mean to go on. if you know what I mean. Let's get that tone nailed. Let's get the voice nailed. Let's do all the advertising that we've got to do alongside it. But, you know, we have blog articles. We have blog articles that don't sell straight from the moment that we click that website going on. I think I wrote 10 like articles in advance for it.
How often do you think that companies should blog?
See, that's a difficult one, isn't it? You know, so the big boys are sort of like sending you a new blog out every day, aren't they? And to find that amount of content, I think, you know, if we're talking as a startup, blog as often as you can in say, you know, even if it's once a fortnight, you've got a lot going on to get your brand going. We can understand if you were not going to be firing out a blog a day. And I think sometimes, you know, a blog a day might be too much. Ideally, you know, once a week, I think it's a good amount of time. It gives you, because it's not only the blog and the writing, it's the distribution, isn't it? You've got to distribute that blog.
So yeah, definitely. I mean, you want to get that blog out there and you want to give them time. You know, a week is a good time to be able to, you know, promote the blog, put it on LinkedIn and your other social media platforms to drive those people to your website and read the blog. Now, how long for like a word count? What do you think for a blog? What's a good word count? Some say 300 words, some say 350, some say 500, some even say up to 1,500 words. What do you think is a good readable length to keep somebody's interest?
I mean, the thing is, if you're going to write less than 500, then that's not good for SEO in the first place. Google doesn't like you know, pages with very little content on them. It won't rank very well. If you're going to go, I think it was about 600 was, you know, like it was suggested for your minimum, and that's what I suggest for minimum anyway. I mean, you still have a little bit, you know, a little bit of structure with your blog, you know, a small introduction, a bit of a conclusion, and the meat in the middle. You know, if you're going to write 300 words, you're not really getting an awful lot out there. You know, it's not going to be. It might be, you know, it's sort of like it might be, you know, rich with your keywords and everything else like that, but you still need readability. You still need something engaging about it. And I think 300 words, you're kind of pushing it if you want to get some decent information to somebody. I would say, you know, if you're going to write the smallest, you're going to write the smallest that Google likes, which is 600 words. But there is nothing wrong with if your writing is engaging enough of hitting 1,000. Or 2,000. You know, one of the most read blogs that I've seen was about color psychology. And don't get me started on that. But it was written by Code Schedule, and it was 4,000 words. But it's the go-to article about color psychology. One of my more read blogs, in fact, the one that got ranked the highest for a while was with Mailer Manager, was about email marketing and how email marketing will be affected by Brexit. That was close to 1,600 words. Got to the top. It was widely read. It was my unicorn for a while. It was, you know, number one on Google when you searched email marketing and Brexit together, and that were, you know, but some people, I can understand what some people are going, oh, but that's a lot of text, that's, you know, that's a lot of reading. But the thing is, people do read. People are consuming content. There's something about the amount of, you know, when you've got slightly longer blogs, as long as you're, you know, got frequent headers and you know breaking all the text up, so that helps with dual readability. But there's something about that kind of gives you a little bit more air of professionalism or knowledgeable. Yeah, makes you look that little bit more knowledgeable. Now, I'm not saying waffle on for, you know, 2,000 words, you know, on one subject. If you haven't got that amount of interesting content to say about that, but don't limit yourself down to 300 words because, you know, you assume that people can only consume content so small. It's not true. It's you know, there are so many statistics you'll find out there about longer blogs being more successful. It's like white papers as well. I mean, you and I both know white papers themselves are relatively useless. They're heavy on content, but the problem is people can't help but download them because it makes you look more professional. And someone who's taken that time to create a white paper is, it's like case studies, isn't it? It's like it's a lot of content that people probably aren't going to read all of it, but they'll engage because they've made a case study. They know what they're doing. They're displaying their prowess. They're displaying their knowledge. As for a particular word count, I don't think there is a magic number. It's, we say 600 words, for SEO purposes, but, one 600 word blog might absolutely kill it. And another one might absolutely flop. So I think it's down to that. I think you need to use your own common sense, really. It's when do you feel like you're starting to waffle on? When do you think that what you're writing is just piffle? Rein it in, tighten it up, like you would if with a short story, Jeff. Like, one all those times we sat there editing the short stories for your collection, where it's like narrowing it down. That short story, you know what I'm on about. Narrowing it down, getting so that the text is tight. You kind of have to look at it the same way, I think.
Well, absolutely. I mean, what was that feedback I was given about my one the bombastic? Well, the feedback I was given about my short story that not a lot happened in the space. I don't know if you recall that from a few years ago.
Let me forget it, Jeff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good feedback. It's good feedback. I mean, did it
know
bruise
what you said at the time?
did it bruise my ego? Yeah, I'll admit. But yeah, I mean, honestly, with blog writing, fluff. I don't think that fluff is really great for human consumption. If a company wants to put out a blog post that's keyword heavy and just full of fluff, I mean 300 words even isn't enough to put enough keywords in there to make it sound at all consumable, in my opinion. And then I think that once you top to about 1,500 words and you still have a little bit more to say, I would think about carving that up into a series, maybe cutting that down into 3 blogs, 3 700-word blogs, and making it a series over the next 3 weeks. And that's also a big time saver.
Yeah, that's not the worst suggestion I've ever heard. You're right. I mean, if people are going to write that amount, and maybe it is worth putting into a series, 300 words, it's almost not worth even pressing the publish button. If you're a startup, I think a good tool, I mean, it is especially if you're using WordPress, but if not, I'm sure it plugs into others. A good tool, if you're unsure, is Yoast. All I'll say is don't go chasing the green light all the time. You'll know what I mean if you do that. But that gives some quite handy little bits of advice there. It looks at, about whether you're waffling on, but about keeping your sentences down, about word count, so about how many times you're using your keywords. It gives you SEO tips throughout it. All you need to do is write something readable and then kind of have a look at it at the end. And if you're unsure, and you can't afford to outsource to a content writer, get Yoast. Yoast will give you a good enough foundation to be able to put some content out each week that will be at least digestible, or at least Google will be looking at it. Yeah,
Yoast is a great tool. It'll piss you off. If you start chasing if you start chasing that green light, it will piss you off. But it does give a lot of great suggestions. Some of them I don't take, because if you're doing this, you're doing that. It almost begins, to change the voice, to change the sentence structure. But I mean, if you look at the suggestions that they give, with an open mind, then can definitely help your blog writing. And that's especially true for like you said, companies that are on a shoestring or bootstrap startups and can't afford even to hire a blog writer, even off Upwork or an outsourcing company like Telework PH, that want to do it themselves, but have no, writing experience whatsoever. Pretty much, I wouldn't say anybody can write a blog, but I think, with given enough time and enough tools and enough resources, you can put together something if you can just write down your thoughts.
Yeah.
Or
that's very, very true.
Or just, read an article and write a short review about the article that you read and share the article. You know what I mean? Anything that can just get something out to, out to your readers, out to your audience. Speaking of audience, that I want to quote you actually. And this is a blog you wrote back in March of 2019 on how to become a content cult hero, which is it's an excellent article. Excellent. Is it an article? Is it a blog post?
I call it a blog post.
Yeah, I call it a blog post.
Actually, a blog article if you want. We can call it that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you want to invent words, Shakespeare, you go right ahead.
Just while you quote it, I'm going to look for that. Actually, was it the content?
Yeah, how to become a content cult hero, and you say, if your audience concerns are not your concerns, that is a little bit tough, I'm afraid. You will never engage with an audience if you aren't willing to address the issues that are important to them. If you don't engage these readers, you are never going to recommend they are never going to recommend your blogs to other professionals. You might not even get anyone opening your blog. You remember writing that?
Yes, it sounds like something I would write. But it's very, very true. It's the same with for creative writers, isn't it? If you don't consider your audience, then what are you doing this for? Why are you doing this? At the end of the day, the words you put on paper that you press publish, they're there to be read. If you're not providing your audience, your prospects, your customers with the content that they need, I think that's an important distinction to make. Sort of with a creative writer, it's just, it's putting the content that people want. With blog writing and writing for businesses, if you're not, the word need is important. If you're not fulfilling that need, so your competitor will be, for a start off, and that's always worth remembering. But if you're not doing that, why would they come back? Why, if they read a couple of your blogs and it's like that you've not addressed what you've said on the tin, B, you're kind of not talking about their niche or what they want. Why would they going to come back for a third article?
Right. So that leads to the next point that I wanted to make was, you have to know your audience. I mean, you may be a dog lover and you may want to write about your dog or dogs in general, but is that something that your audience or your potential customers that you want to target, are they going to read that? Are they going to be interested in dogs, or do they care about dogs? Does your company have anything to do with dogs? So, I mean, that's what I was thinking when I read those words is, you have to kind of set aside some of your own interests, and think about the company and who's your audience.
No, you did right, and that is something I do mean. It's like, what is it you're always told? Check your ego at the door. You might want to write flourishing blog articles about one aspect of the industry, but if that's not what your customer wants, it's pointless doing it. It's absolutely pointless doing it, because it's not going to get read. You need to know what your customers want. That's why keyword research is really important, or checking things like Google Trends or LinkedIn, Twitter, doing all that to see what they're interested in right now. Because if you can understand your audience, then you can feed that need. If you don't understand your audience, or if you just want to write generic blogs, based in your industry, you're going to get limited hits, and that might be problematic for your company.
So now that's something that if a company wanted to, they could come to Leadmetrics, right? And get blogs written, and that's kind of like what you guys do over there is, look at the target audience for that company, for that niche, and you're able to write a blog for that specific industry.
Yes, we're talking directly what I do for Leadmetrics. There is what I will do is if you come in, you want so many blogs a week, I will look at your industry. I'll look at what's being talked about, I'll look at what's being searched, and say, right, okay, how about these suggestions for blogs that are coming out. As well as doing content, we do social media, but we, again, it's, what content do we want to put out for the customers' clients, not our own. So that's kind of where we will look. Other things we do is like Google Ads and marketing automation. So, but most of what we do here is it's not with our customers in mind, but their customers in mind. We will look at around that industry. It's like I've got tons of bookmarks. All of a sudden, by accident, I'm building up, quite a repertoire of logistics knowledge. I've mentioned logistics a good few times because we've got a few customers on about logistics, and I need to be researching that industry for their customers and what their customers want all the time. I've even subscribed to a magazine, Logistics Business, which comes through the door. But this is kind of what you need to be doing. If you're going to be creating content for your customers, you need to kind of know what there is. And that's kind of where I come from. That's where we come from as a company. That's kind of our culture. I often find myself saying to clients, if it works for you, then it's working for me. And that's kind of where you have to look at it, because if it isn't working for the customer, they're going to stop paying you. On that level, you got to look at it that way. But I kind of also wouldn't mind people referring me, or people saying, "Oh, do you know who's good? That bloke I deal with at Leadmetrics." So it has to work for the customer for it to work for me.
Oh, absolutely. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of Leadmetrics, what's the best way?
You can find us on LinkedIn or Facebook. We have various pages, showcase pages. You can email us at info@leadmetrics.co.uk. You can find us at leadmetrics.co.uk as well. So we're all over the place. They're the best places to go.
Awesome. And I'll put those links in the description for the podcast so that people can just click and easily get a hold of you and check out your services. Adam, thank you very, very much for joining.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
We'll talk to you again. It's
always a pleasure to hear your dulcet tones.
And it wasn't too much of a bombastic conversation.
No, I was expecting some references to roses and the moon and all that sort of nonsense. But no, we behaved ourselves quite well.
I think we did pretty good. And I think our audience will like it too. So
excellent.
All right. Thank you again. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jeff. Ta-da.
All right. So that'll wrap it up for this installment of Telecast PH. I've been BizDev Jeff, your host. Thank you so much for listening. And a special thank you to Mr. Adam Ward for taking the time to talk with us today. Now, if you like this podcast, please subscribe. And if you're on the YouTube channel, please go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload new content. And I'm always looking for great feedback, so comments are always welcome. And of course, if you want to find out more about Telework PH, all you got to do is hop on over to www.teleworkph.com or hit me up on LinkedIn. Just search BizDev Jeff Thompson or the hashtag BizDevJeff, and we'll talk about ways that we can help you scale up your business quicker. And as the late great Dr. Wayne Dyer said, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Take care, everyone. Be safe. This is BizDev Jeff, signing off.